Larry Silverstein had the patience of a saint to overcome the many obstacles in the path to rebuilding Ground Zero, but he's not resting on his laurels. And that's what we're going to talk about first. You actually want to build a casino on the west side. After all the stuff you went through at Ground Zero, you have not lost the taste for building. So you want to build a casino near the Javits Convention Center. Why?
Well, because New York can benefit from the income that a casino will produce. And it's anticipated the casino is really not meant for people who live in New York. It's meant for people from outside of New York, visitors who will come to New York.
Do you really think visitors are going to be coming with all the turmoil that's happening on Wall Street?
You know, today, no one knows, but tomorrow, hopefully.
So the thing about this is that it's not the only casino bid that's being made. There are lots of casino bids all over the city, in Brooklyn and in Queens,
yes,
and 3 in the same area where you want to bid. There's one in Times Square, there's a proposal, and there's one in Hudson Yards. What makes you think that your proposal near the Javits Center is the one that's going to be the winning bid?
Marcia, I think we've got the best location of the 3 because we're in an area where no one objects. There's nobody to object in the area in which we're located. So there's the bus terminal, mass transit. There's the convention center. It's a location where you don't have objections surfacing from the community in general. So there's so many objections to the other sites. The site that doesn't get any objections is ours, because we're in an area where there's no controversy. There's an area where there are no people around who object to it.
But people would say that Times Square would be a good place to go because people go there as tourists. There's a lot to get them to go to Times Square. Why not Times Square as opposed to your location, which is really on the outskirts of the area?
Well, I think our location is devoid of the masses of people who exist today, who populate the Times Square area. Times Square is just extraordinarily busy, extraordinarily congested. We don't have that congestion problem. We don't have any of that. So for our location, I think, is from the standpoint of a location that could work, that no one has any objections to, I think that we're in a very good spot for that.
Does it help that it's near the bus terminal, so people, if they wanted to, could take a bus and go gamble at your casino?
Absolutely.
But also, the other question is this. The city and the state and the Port Authority, your friends at the Port Authority, want to rebuild the Port Authority bus terminal.
Yes.
Will that impede your plans to build a casino in the same area?
I don't believe so much.
Why not?
Well, because they're slightly distant from each other. The bus terminal is 8th Avenue to 9th Avenue. We're between 10th and 11th. So that the immediacy is not that great, but it's close enough for people to utilize the bus terminal and walk over for the gambling.
We have to point out, though, that there are only 3 licenses that are available for downstate. And some people think that the casino in Empire State in Yonkers has a inside track for that, and that the Racino that also exists at Aqueduct has an inside track. So that would mean that there's 1 license and gazillion bids. How do you feel that you have a better chance than all the other people?
Of all of those, there is 1 casino that's going to be located in Manhattan.
Right.
And we think we have a great shot.
But there's also somebody who wants to build one on the east side near the UN.
Yes, there's mass transit in that location. It's devoid of it. That's the problem. Mass transit is terribly important.
So did you buy this piece of property with the idea of building a casino right there?
Honestly, no. We've had the property for some time.
So to switch gears for a second, you've written a book. It's called The Rising. I want you to see it. And it is about the trials, tribulations, the good times, the bad times of trying to rebuild on Ground Zero after a horrendous terrorist attack. But first we have to point out that you actually bought the property 6 weeks
before 9/11.
So did you, when it happened, like, you must have been like crazed?
I was totally shocked, like everybody else was. But having purchased it just 6 weeks prior to 9/11 was a staggering experience.
Well, what went through your head when you saw the towers coming down? Didn't you have offices there at that point?
We were, we were extraordinarily fortunate because I had two children on their way to working in the temporary offices on the 90th floor
Oh my
of the
God.
North Tower. And fortunately, this happened. The first building came down, first plane hit the North Tower. It's about 9:15. If it hit at 9 o'clock, it would have been a disaster for me, personal disaster, because I could have lost two of my children. As happened, we lost 4 employees of Silverstein Properties with 8 children between them. That was extremely difficult. And then, of course, we lost almost 3,000 people working in and around the trade center, plus the first responders. That was a horrendous experience. And that's something you could never forget. I could never forget that.
So you wake up the next morning and all of your properties are rubble. Not to mention the fact that it was still on fire and it took months to put the fire out and all the people who had perished. What were your thoughts? Were your thoughts, I'm going to try to rebuild? Were your thoughts, oh my God? What were you thinking?
Marcia, the Governor Pataki, called me, I think, 2 days after 9/11. I think it was about 7 o'clock in the morning, and he called, and he said, Larry, what do you think we ought to do?
And you said?
And I said, Governor, the World Trade Center was the locomotive for all of the commercial activity in Lower Manhattan. I said, if we don't rebuild that, Lower Manhattan is going to fade away. I said, it's got 12 mass transit lines feeding it. There was so much dynamic activity in Lower Manhattan, particularly in the world of finance. I said, I really think it's got to get rebuilt. And the sooner we do it, the better it is.
Did you have any doubts that you could do it?
You know, it didn't occur to me. I didn't think about that.
But
I just knew it had to be rebuilt.
It was a years-long and very difficult project.
Well,
So
it's only taken me 23 years.
But the thing about it is that did you ever have doubts? I mean, you had to deal with a series of mayors, a series of governors, insurmountable hurdles. What was the most difficult part of it?
I think the most difficult part was the 5 years of litigation with 22 insurance companies who decided they didn't want to pay 5 cents of their obligations to me in terms of what I was entitled to.
Did you ever end up getting the money back that you had to use to fight the insurance companies?
We got some monies that we had to use to fight them, no. But at the end of the day, what we received from the insurance companies was about $4.3 billion. As it turns out, we've spent far, far more than that in rebuilding the Trade Center.
Do you think it was an economically beneficial thing to do for the Silverstein Company?
I wouldn't, I never thought about the economics. What I did think about was the necessity of getting it rebuilt. And I dedicated myself to doing exactly that. But I also tell you, Marcia, I never believed it would take 20 years or 23 years to do it.
Did you believe you'd be able to do it?
I'm sorry?
Did you believe you'd be able to do it?
I felt I had an obligation to do it. In the lease that I signed, I was 71 years of age when I signed a 100-year lease with the Port Authority.
So when you're in your office and you look out over what is now a totally rebuilt area, yeah. What's your feeling?
I have a sense of tremendous pride. As I look down, I say to myself, and I look at it every day because we live there, and so it strikes me as if we've done a pretty good job at rebuilding. It gives me a feeling of satisfaction, and so I'm proud of what we've done.
Well, we're going to have to leave it right there for now. But up next, a new movie about an old problem. We talk to the people behind Drop Dead City, New York, on the brink in 1975. We are back with developer Larry Silverstein. So my first question is this. Having gone through the 23-year struggle to rebuild the Ground Zero project, what are the lessons that you've learned in terms of redevelopment in New York City?
You need a an oversupply of patience, determination, fortitude. New York has a whole list of problems that you have to deal with. It's a very complex city, but when it came to the Trade Center, the magnitude of the issues quadrupled because where it is, the number of lives that were lost, the question among our elected officials as to what should be rebuilt and how, and who should make those determinations. So it's
and everybody had an opinion.
The opinions were constant, and but after a while, it occurred to me that the best thing I could do was make the determinations I felt were right, and not listen to all the white noise that was coming at me from scores of different people.
So you're a developer at heart. You're a born and bred developer. When you see all the empty office buildings in New York City as a result of the pandemic, what do you think and what should be done with them?
Well, Marcia, there are significant numbers of empty office buildings today. They're old. Many of them built 60, 70, 80, 90 years ago.
Should they be taken down?
So in many cases, in some cases, those buildings are going to be converted to residential. We're doing a project just like that now. And I think it's going to be successful. I think it's going to be very successful. And if it is, and I suspect it will be, I anticipate doing other similar projects, converting office buildings to residential. Now there are many buildings that have too large a floor plates to work for conversion purposes. So those buildings will come down and be replaced ultimately, some by other office buildings, others by residential.
Won't that be incredibly expensive to do? And can you make any of them affordable housing?
Affordable housing is extremely necessary in New York. It's desperately needed.
But how do you do it in a way that's affordable for both the developer and the builder and the people moving in?
It's extremely difficult. That's why there's almost nothing being done today in terms of producing affordable housing, which is desperately needed by the city. There's no question.
So what's the solution?
I think part of the solution is to make the laws more consistent with recognizing the demands for that space. We really have to do a better job than we're doing in terms of working with the elected officials to make it rational, make it feasible, make it possible.
But all the elected officials give lip service to the fact that they say we need more affordable housing. But the question is their ideas. Do you think that their ideas are workable?
No.
So what should they be doing? If you could talk directly to them, what would you say their policy should be as opposed to what they're talking about?
Well, first of all, we've got a city council working with Mayor Adams, and they've given him a very tough time. But that's a different story. We also have a state legislature who's worked with Governor Hochul, and that's another difficult story. Both of our elected leaders in those cases have had an excruciatingly difficult time working with the state legislature and working with city council. They need to be more flexible in terms of recognizing what's required to build these buildings under difficult circumstances. Costs today are incredibly high and getting higher, and the cost of financing. No one knows where the financing costs are going to go.
So what do you do? Do you build smaller? Do you build taller? Do you build... I mean, what do you do?
I think you make zoning, you change the zoning laws to make affordable housing much more rational, much more feasible than it is today. I mean, that's one of the issues. I think you also have to provide financing at a much lower cost than is available today through institutions.
So does the city do the financing itself?
I think the city has to figure out how to... A city actually needs financeability. The state needs financeability. So the funds have to come from some source. And currently, we recognize what's going on in Washington. To expect federal financing is almost impossible.
Right. So, I mean, does the city float bonds to build housing?
It may have to. You know, it's happened in the past. It may have to do the same in the future. If we're going to do it, it needs to be done as quickly as possible.
So do you think that the work from home policies during COVID contributed to this glut of office space here in Manhattan?
To some extent, it has. There's no question.
Will we ever come back to that? Will we ever make everybody?
I think, Marcia, we're going to come back to that because more firms are talking about the need to bring people back because people can't be mentored. You cannot mentor people at home from the office. It doesn't work. You need to bring people together. They need to relate to each other.
But people got used to working at home and they don't want to come back to work.
Well, if they don't want to come back to work, they won't come back. They'll either find other jobs or they'll go without a job.
It's just that I wonder about, so here's the question. When you look at the need for office space, will the needs, say, 10 years from now be the same as they are now? Will they increase? Will they decrease?
Marcia, I've been through, I can't tell you how many downturns in my life, in my professional life. I've seen all kinds of conditions, but somehow New York always comes back bigger, better, stronger. And I think my prayer is that we see the same thing going forward. Now, I don't have too much time to see this. I'm 94 years of age, but I hope it comes quickly.
You're 94 and going strong.
I'm hoping to.
You're an inspiration.
Thank you very much.
So I'm wondering, you've also been married for 68 years. What are the secrets for a long and happy marriage?
Number one, picking the right spouse is the single most important decision you make in your entire life, is to make sure you pick somebody who shares your core values. Because if it's the wrong person, it's a disaster. It ends up in divorce. If it's the right person, there isn't anything you can't do with your life because you do it together as a team. And so I got very lucky. I found the right person the first time. We've been married for 68 years, and I can tell you, they've been 68 glorious years.
So what's the secret of a good marriage?
Well, one thing is saying yes, dear, at least every hour and a half hour. Expecting reciprocity, I'm not so sure. But we've just had beautiful lives together, and we have so much to be happy for, so much to be proud of. We have 8 kids, right? We have 3 children, 8 grandchildren, and 1 great-grandchild.
So what's your advice for people starting out?
What's my advice? Make sure that you understand the likes, the dislikes, the attitudes, the preferences, the core values that you possess, and don't expect to change the core values of someone you're thinking about marrying, because changing doesn't work too well. If they've got it to begin with, you're in good shape. If they don't have it to begin with, not such a good idea to marry.
So they have to have it. Whatever it is, they have to have it.
It is very important.
Okay. Larry Silverstein, thank you very much for joining me.
You're very welcome.
And thank you at home for joining us as well.